today we will try to understand the strategy for history for civil services examination. See, as you must be knowing that of late the importance of Indian history and culture has increased tremendously in civil services examination, and as per the recent trend suggest that at least 15 to 20% weightage in preliminary examination is given to history. And if you will analyze previous year's questions, it will give you the impression that the total number of question from this area, history and culture, has shown an increasing trend, and not only increasing trend, the level of toughness has also increased, and now they are asking question from newspaper, not only from news, also from views, It is not only current orientation. If there are some article related to some traditional topic in your newspaper, they started asking those questions also, which have made the preparation for this examination related to history, of course, more challenging, So, we will try to today understand the challenge and strategy to prepare history for this civil services examination. Before I tell you what exactly should be your strategy, what exactly should be your basic book, I want to give you some example. Suppose last 1 month, those who want to prepare for next year. So, last 1 month there were many news, which you can of course see in your newspaper, but if you do not have a good background of history and culture, it is difficult to appreciate, And why I am emphasizing that newspaper based approach is also required in history, because last 3 years when you will analyze that trend, they started asking question from newspaper, just take some example. In 2018, there was a question from a festival called Chhapchar Kut festival, You must be knowing, if you are from Northeast, that it is a very important annual harvest festival of Mizoram. But it is difficult to prepare. Those who are not from Northeast, for them it is difficult to prepare. Do not think that you have a book where you have 30-40 festivals compiled and you will remember that, and out of that they would be asking question. No. So, as this festival was in your newspaper because of some issue published by, you can say, the Hindu, Indian Express in 2017, November, December, January, February 18. So, you can say that they asked this question, Chhapchar Kut festival of Mizoram. For example, in 2018, there was a question on Ammacharya, Annamacharya and Tyagaraj, So, one question on both these personality, one belonged to 18th century, one belonged to 15th century. This question was so typical that if you do not have understanding that exactly why they are in news, what kind of article they have published, you can say Hindu or Indian Express or Times of India, they have published on these personality, it is not possible to answer, you can say, this kind of question from your basic understanding or your NCERT reading. I hope you are getting what I am trying to tell you, that now even in history and culture, questions are, you can say, being asked from newspaper, from newspaper. Then if you remember, in 2019 also there was 2 very interesting newspaper based question. Newspaper article based question. One was on Ranyo Asoka, right, stone portrait of Asoka, right. Those who have history, they must be knowing it, Kangan Halli inscription. So, this question was also based on newspaper. You cannot handle this question based on your, right, popular material or NCERT or popular textbook, right. If you are familiar with this article, it would be easy for you. If you are not familiar with this article, it was very difficult question. Then there was a question in 2019 on Mia Tansen, right. Mia Tansen, we all are familiar, we all know that what was the contribution of Mia Tansen, but the kind of question they raised, kind of issue they raised in that question. Why? Because there was an article in Hindu newspaper in 2018 on Mia Tansen. I hope like you are now getting, and I made my point very clear, that challenging this preparation is now, why they say that difficult, because the history questions, of course, they are not increasing the number, they are making it tough. Why we consider it tough? Because it is not based on some particular book, right. They are based on newspaper, right. I was saying that we can take like 2-3 example last 1 month, and you will understand that how these examples are also relevant, right, and this can be asked in the coming examination. Probably they asked in you can say they asked this example in some state PCS examination also. For example, there was a PIB release, and of course Hindu also published it, that there was a book called Venu Silp by Chitracharya Upendra Maharathi. I do not think that most of us, like, we are familiar with this personality called Chitracharya Upendra Maharathi, and he wrote a book, he wrote many books, right. He wrote a book on bamboo art Venu Silp. This was published by newspaper, PIB release was there, some state PCS examination they asked this question, this can be asked in UPSC, right. So, but this kind of personality, this kind of information you are not going to get in your, right, the popular material or NCERT, right. So, there is a need to, right, incorporate, there is a need to include all these information from newspaper in your preparation. For example, one more example I want to give, in 2019 only, there was a Upanishad, right, called Isavasya Upanishad. It was in news, Isavasya Upanishad. Those who have history background also, they are familiar with Upanishad, they are familiar with Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, they are familiar with Kathopanishad, right, but they are not familiar with Isavasya Upanishad. And it was in news. Why it was news? It was in news because Lokpal decided to accept one slok of this Upanishad as its slogan. Is it okay? So, therefore, Isavasya Upanishad was also in news. So, if you have idea about Upanishad and they are asking Isavasya Upanishad, it would be a tough question for you. But if you are familiar with the newspaper, then it would not be a difficult question for you. I hope you are getting my point. Like one more example, recently, right, there was a death of a great, filmmaker Basu Chatterjee, and because of this personality, a new term, of course it was not a new term, it was an old term called new wave cinema, parallel cinema, right, became popular. Now, there is a possibility of asking question even in the main examination, what exactly is the meaning of new wave cinema or parallel cinema and how it contributed, right, in our, you can say, society. Is it okay? So, new wave cinema is a term, but it became important, it became popular because of this news, and the Hindu published the news, this news on death of Basu Chatterjee, and they highlighted the term new wave cinema. I hope you are getting it. So, this kind of news in your newspaper will give you some indication, will give you some hint, and if you are in a position to catch, right, this hint, you can prepare for this examination very properly. And therefore, I want to suggest that history and culture is also becoming a dynamic area. It is not about 2-3 NCERT and 2-3 textbook. You have to add newspaper reading, then only we can catch those areas. One more example if I can take, if you are from Jharkhand area, you must be knowing a painting, tribal influence painting called Sohrai Khobar painting. When you will prepare painting in our culture, right, most of your textbook will not suggest what exactly is Sohrai Khobar painting, but it was in news, GI tag, and therefore, this became important for our examination, and next year this question can be asked, right. They ask very simple question that this painting related to which area, this painting related to which theme. So, Sohrai Khobar painting can be asked probably next year. I hope you are getting it. So, now you know this idea that history is also dynamic now, but to appreciate this dynamism there is a need to appreciate some basic reading, and therefore, NCERT reading and some textbook reading is very, very important. This reading will create a good base, and then you will start searching new development in your newspaper, and you will start adding those new information in your traditional notes, and right, you would be ready for this examination. I hope it is okay. Now, one more challenge in the preparation of history for this examination is new weightage, right. Why I am saying new weightage? You must be knowing it that when you prepare for this examination, when you will analyze last year, previous year question, you will come to know that probably modern India is the most important area for your preliminary examination in Indian history. But now, right, last year only in 2019, they asked 16 questions. So, there is a general trend that I told you that 15%, right, on an average every year you will get question on history, right. So, 15-16 question average out of 100. So, in 2019 also 16 questions were asked in preliminary, and out of 16 question 4 from ancient, 5 from medieval and 7 from modern. 4 from ancient culture, 5 from medieval culture and 7 from modern. So, there were 9 questions from ancient and medieval culture. So, now weightage now given to ancient and medieval India also. So, if you say that modern India is more relevant and ancient and medieval you can ignore, it would not be a good strategy now, right. I will be elaborating this point again. I hope you are getting it. So, the next challenge is more weightage now given, right, to ancient and medieval, at least like you can say last 2 years you will see the trend. So, earlier they used to focus only modern India. So, I told you 2 important development. I said one development is now in history and culture newspaper based questions they started asking, and it is a new challenge. Second point I said that now weightage given to even ancient and medieval also, this is a new trend, because your senior will suggest you that there is no need to read ancient and medieval, more focus should be on modern India. I hope you are getting that, particularly in the preliminary examination. I hope you are getting it, right. So, these 2 challenge that in this context only we have to think about, we have to discuss about the strategy for history, right, related to civil services examination. Now, before I give you, strategy or approach or source for different area in history, I want to tell you that what exactly is the history for this civil services examination now after 2013, right. Earlier, the situation was totally different. Now, right, there is a change now. So, what exactly is the syllabus for this examination? See, when you say the syllabus for this examination in history, you will see that now they started asking questions, you can say, from ancient India, right, from medieval India, right, of course, then modern India, then post-modern, post-independence, post-modern or post-independence would be right word, and then you have world history. So, when you say history for civil services examination, now we mean ancient India 1, medieval India 2nd, modern India 3rd, post independence 4th, and world history 5th. Are you getting that? And then they have added 6th, heritage, culture. So, history, right, in your main examination, right, and in your preliminary examination, right. So, in the main examination in GS paper 1, you have these areas related to history, right, and out of that they have not mentioned these two areas. Of course, it is more related to preliminary examination PT, and they have added in your main examination syllabus modern, post independence, world history and culture. So, these areas for our main examination. So, ancient and medieval India, it is mainly important for preliminary examination, right, mainly important for preliminary examination. They have mentioned it explicitly. Of course, they can ask you question from modern India, because history of India in PT. Then post independence also they can ask, culture of course they are asking, but in syllabus of main examination they have mentioned modern, post independence, world history and culture, and we have to prepare ancient and medieval also for preliminary examination. So, overall for civil services examination in history we have to take these areas: ancient, medieval, modern, post independence, world history and culture. These areas I indicated that modern you have to prepare for PT and main. So, modern would be a very important area for you. So, modern would be very important area for you. Why? Because they ask, right, 7 to 8 question in preliminary examination, and they ask generally 3 to 4 question, right, from modern India in main examination. So, modern India would be an important area for you. I hope it is okay. It is very important. It should be your priority area. Modern India, relevant for PT, relevant for main. Your preparation style should be objective and subjective. Are you getting that? So, modern India you have to prepare very properly. Post independence India is mainly, you can say, it is for main examination, post independence, consolidation and reorganization. World history, of course, it is mainly, right, for main examination. So, there is no guarantee, you know, that there is no written any instruction that they are not going to ask you any question from post independence and world history in preliminary examination. They can, right, but generally they are not asking, particularly that you can say in your examination, right. So, post independence and world history you must prepare for main examination. Culture, like modern India, is also becoming, you know, very important. Why? Because they started asking question in preliminary, of course 2-3 question, right, you will see in the main examination also related to culture. Is it okay? So, in history your priority area should always be modern India and culture. This is very simple, and you will see that in most of our, you can say, right, you know, the preparation strategy, these two areas are the focus area, modern India and culture. These two should be your first wall of defense. There should be no compromise in modern India and culture, right, and it will help you in preliminary as well as main examination. So, there is no, you can say, difference, right, here. You have to think about preliminary and main examination in modern India. Then post independence and world history you must keep in mind main examination, and those idea of the main examination will help you if they ask you some general question in, you can say, preliminary, right, examination also, but they generally do not ask question from post independence and world history. But last, right, you can say 2-3 year you will see that in different examination, not only UPSC, right, they started asking question, right, from world history and in post independence, right. So, these two can also be prepared, but priority should be for main examination. Ancient and medieval, these two I said it is mainly important for PT, mainly important for PT. So, when you prepare ancient medieval, you should focus on preliminary examination, but I will give you example that you can say they have this tendency to ask some question even from ancient and medieval also related to culture. So, cultural ancient India, cultural aspect of medieval India, right, they can ask in the main examination also. So, idea is simple. So, when you prepare ancient India, initially we were not focusing ancient India, we were ignoring ancient India, but now trend suggests that they can ask, right, question from ancient India. So, ancient medieval you should prepare quickly for preliminary examination, mainly preliminary examination. They can some culture based question in ancient medieval in main examination, but ancient medieval generally, right, we prepare it for preliminary examination. So, when you read your NCERT and all, always keep this in your mind that ancient and medieval is not relevant for, right, you can say the main examination, it is mainly relevant for preliminary examination. When you prepare modern, when you prepare culture, you can always think that even main examination this area can be asked, and post independence and world history, right, you should always prepare for main examination. You should not think about preliminary examination. They can, but they will ask you some general question, right, in post independence and world history. Is this okay? So, the syllabus in your history portion of paper 1 general studies, right, you will see that they have ancient India, medieval India, modern India, post independence, world history and culture, right. Now, with this background, now try to, right, understand, right, different component, right. First try to understand what should be our strategy in ancient India. Is it okay? Now, when you prepare ancient India, it is mainly, right, you can say a story from prehistory till 8th century AD in ancient India, right. So, prehistory till 8th century AD. In ancient India, like you have many topic, but out of these topic, right, Harappan civilization, right, you will see Vedic age, then you will see Buddhism, Jainism, then you will see that Gupta is, and, right, some you can say inscriptions related to ancient India and some important books related to ancient India. These are some, you can say, popular area for asking question. So, when you prepare ancient India, of course, what you need? You need a general outline of ancient India from prehistory till 8th century AD. But your priority area in your ancient India should be not prehistory. Are you getting that? Not, information, detailed information about Indo-Greek, detailed information, right, about, you can say, a different aspect of, right, the ruler, different ruler. No, they are generally don't ask those questions. So, you will see that the priority area is that they are asking Harappan sites, they are asking some terms, some development related to the Vedic age, they ask question from Buddhism and Jainism, heterodox movements, they ask question from the achievement during the Gupta period, they can ask you about Aryabhatta, they can ask you about Varamihir, right, and then you have to prepare some important inscription related to even Ashokan inscription, Ashokan edict, right, related to ancient India and some important popular book of ancient India. So, if you have less time, you do not want to, right, you can say read entire ancient India, you can prepare Harappa, Vedic age, Buddhism, Jainism, Gupta, achievement of Gupta, some important inscription of ancient India, some important books of ancient India, that is it. Probably you will get 2-3 questions, right, from ancient India, right. Now, what kind of question they ask? I said that in ancient India, right, we generally prepare for preliminary examination, but they ask questions, right, even in the main examination related to culture of ancient India, right. For example, in 2013 from ancient India, they asked a question from Sangam literature, right. Sangam literature, they asked the question that how it portrays the social and economic condition, right, of that time, Sangam literature. So, literary developments, Vedic literature, Sangam literature, Pali literature, right, these are important achievement, literary achievements, and they ask question in culture. So, when you prepare ancient India, you always think that these questions can be asked in ancient India also. Like 2018, there was a question in ancient India, importance of the foreign travelers, accounts of the Chinese and Arab travelers in the reconstruction of the history of India. If you do not have idea about ancient India, early medieval India, how we can handle it? So, even if they ask less question, right, in preliminary examination, ancient India will always prepare a good base for your culture, and they ask question also even in the main examination related to ancient India. So, my suggestion would be not to ignore ancient India. One more example I want to give, and this question was asked in 2014. Question was about the urban planning and culture of Indus Valley civilization. So, if you have prepared Indus Valley civilization very properly even for preliminary examination, and you can relate this features of Indus town planning with the present day urbanization, you can write something at least 100-150 words, right, in your main examination. Is this okay? I hope you can see you are getting, I made my point clear, that in ancient India there is a need to appreciate overall development. There is a need to focus Harappa, Vedic age, Buddhism, Jainism, Gupta period, literary development, inscription. So, these are focus areas, and we must not go for details about ancient India, because priority, right, you can say in this examination is not ancient India, priority is modern India and culture. But good understanding of ancient India will always give you, right, good idea about, right, you can say, right, culture. When you have good understanding of ancient India, it will always create a good base for your culture, right. Now, so I hope I made my point that what exactly you should do for ancient India, but we have to understand that what all we have to read in ancient India. See, my suggestion would be you must start with class 6 NCERT, old NCERT for ancient India. It is a very good book, and then you must read old NCERT class 11th by Professor R.S. Sharma. Professor R.S. Sharma. So, Professor R.S. Sharma will prepare you for this examination. There are so many topics in this Professor R.S. Sharma's book, you can say R.S. Sharma's book of ancient India, that it will give you can say indication, right, that in the coming days, right, these areas can be suppose development of philosophy in ancient India, suppose development of science and technology in ancient India, suppose development of society in ancient India, suppose how you can say land grant system changed ancient India. These ideas you will get very properly from this book called R.S. Sharma, right. So, class 11th old NCERT, right, old NCERT, right, you have to read, and right, this book will prepare you, you can say, for this exam. This will, right, prepare your foundation for this examination. Okay. So, NCERT old class 6 and NCERT new, you have to prepare for ancient India. Then the second topic for us is, second area is the medieval India. Medieval India. Medieval India, right, medieval India, you will see that weightage on political history, no, they generally do not ask question from the political development of medieval India, they ask question from cultural development of medieval India, right. And even in the main examination, if you know, right, if you have some idea about the cultural development, it would be very helpful. Like for example, in 2016, they have asked in the main examination a question on Krishna Dev Rai, right. So, Krishna Dev Rai, his cultural achievement, right, they have already asked. So, medieval India, your focus should be cultural development. And last year, right, you can say, you will see that they started, they asked question on, right, some new administrative, experiments. So, now you will see a new trend, they started asking question on Ikta system, they started asking question on Mansabdari system, right, they started asking question on Dehsala system. So, these institutions you must prepare very properly. So, in medieval India, my suggestion would be to prepare cultural dimension, to prepare economic, administrative, and you can say some social institution which developed during this period. And what would be the source book of medieval India for you? Best book available for medieval India is Satish Chandra. Satish Chandra, class 11th, old NCERT, old NCERT. Most of your teachers, seniors, they will suggest you Satish Chandra. It's a best book on medieval India, but I told you that your priority should not be, right, political development, right, your priority should be institutional development, your priority should be cultural development, and you must understand how these institutions, right, established, how it functioned, and how it led to the decline of medieval India, right. So, in medieval India, you must focus, but I told you that it should be for your preliminary examination. Then the next component of your history is modern India. Third component is modern India. Modern India, and I mentioned, I elaborated that why modern India should be your priority area. It would be relevant for you in preliminary examination and it would be relevant for you in main examination, right. And modern India, initially we used to understand that it is from 1857 till 1947, but now they started asking from mid 18th century, right. So, 1750s onward, this development they started asking question. So, always remember it, you have to prepare from mid 18th century, and in 2018 there was a question also on mid 18th century, right. So, question was what? The question was clarify how mid 18th century India was beset with this, you can say, fragmented polity. So, 18th century questions, they started asking question, right, in modern India also, in main examination. So, we must prepare modern India from mid 18th century. Then one more trend you will see in modern India, that now they are asking some question which are, you can say, application based, not exactly, right, from your textbook you have to apply. Like suppose for example, you will prepare Mahatma Gandhi and his different movement, Gandhian movement, but question was throw light on the significance of the thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi in the present time. So, question is now application based. So, you will see this new trend, and this new trend, right, you will have to appreciate in the context of the dynamism of history. You will see that in 2019 there was a question on examine the linkages between the 19th century Indian Renaissance and emergence of national identity. Indian Renaissance, there is a debate in Indian history regarding this term, what exactly is the Indian Renaissance, right, how it was different from the 14th century European Renaissance, whether, right, the socio-religious reform movement of 19th century can be called Indian Renaissance. So now you will see that they ask this question, they want to know your opinion about your meaning, your understanding about Indian Renaissance of 19th century and how it helped, you can say, right, in the rise of emergence of national consciousness, national identity. So modern India question is now based on, you can say, application based question. Newspaper based article also, if you see some article on the modern Indian development, you must read it. In 2018, right, there was a question on indentured labor, why indentured labor was taken by the British, you can say, from India to other countries. This kind of question is difficult to handle from your, right, you can say NCERT, or difficult to handle from your popular textbook. You have to apply yourself. Is this okay? So you have to prepare yourself for this kind of challenge, right. Now what you should do? I told you that you can prepare a good background. You can prepare a good background from class 12th NCERT, right, of Bipin Chandra. It's a best book available, Bipin Chandra. You can prepare a good background. I am not saying that question would be from this book. You have to prepare a good background from class 12th NCERT. Then you can refer to a very popular book of modern India. Why to avoid it? Spectrum. Spectrum is a very popular book, right. Why not, you can also read it, and it's in a notes form and you can utilize it. So Spectrum also you can read, right. But these two will not prepare you for the recent trend, and therefore there is a need to appreciate one more book called Shekhar Bandhopadhyay, some chapters of Shekhar Bandhopadhyay, particularly related to role of women, role of, you can say, capitalist class, role of tribals in your freedom movement. So different areas, different analysis, subaltern studies. So all these new areas you have to add from Shekhar Bandhopadhyay's Palasi to Partisan, right. So three important stages I said in modern India. Stage 1, class 12th NCERT you have to read, you have to start, you have to begin, right, from class 12th NCERT, old NCERT Bipin Chandra. Then you have to read, you have to refer to Spectrum, and then you can add some analysis, right, from Shekhar Bandhopadhyay, and believe me, you would be in a position to appreciate most of the question, right, most of the question. Then next important development, next important area for your civil services examination is post independence, or you can say post independence consolidation and reorganization. See, don't consider this area as a separate area. You prepare this area when you prepare international relation. You prepare this area when you prepare economy. When you prepare this area when you prepare polity also. So post independence consolidation and reorganization should not be conceived a separate area. And they ask question, but they are not very regular. They have asked question on Shastri era also. There was a question on significance of the slogan Jai Jawan Jai Kisan in 2013. There was a question on Tashkent Agreement, right, in 2013. So they ask question, they can ask you question like circumstances leading to Simla Agreement, circumstances leading to emergency, right, circumstances leading to Operation Blue Star. So this kind of question they can ask. They can ask you to analyze Nehru era, Shastri era, Indira era, right. So post independence you must prepare, but you should not consider it as the biggest, the area, right. Why? Because you are covering this part in your polity, in your economy, in your international relation. But for your history, what should be your background, what should be your source book for this post independence? See, the best book available is India Since Independence by Bipin Chandra. You have Ramchandra Guha's book also, but best book I would say for a student is India Since Independence, and particularly chapter number 6, 7, 8, 9, and then even chapter number 31, 30, you can say 34, 35, 38, right. These chapters are very important, and these chapters are related to consolidation, land reform, Indian women since independence. So, you must read these chapters, then you must revise this area from a consolidated material, some coaching material, ALS material, right. So, you must read it, and right, you are actually appreciating all those news, right, in newspaper related to emergency, related to the role of Jayaprakash Narayan, related to the role of Vinoba Bhave. So, this kind of personality when you see in your newspaper, you must think about them, you would be better prepared for this part also. Is this okay? Right. Then last part of your, you can say, civil services, right, syllabus is culture, and as I said that culture has been gaining a lot of weightage in the recent time, right. You have many questions, but you will see that there is a pattern in this culture. See, when we say culture for civil services examination, I will be explaining it in detail, that you have topics like, you will see architecture, you have topic like painting, right, you have topic like sculpture, then you have topic like music, you have topic like dance, theater, circus, cinema, puppetry, right. Then you have development of literature, then you have development of religious movement, Sufi, Bhakti movement, right. Then you have different crafts, right. So, these area culture is expanding, very difficult to handle, but I indicated it is more current based. You must prepare the basic thing from culture, and then you must focus on the development part. And when you will analyze the last year question, you will also get a indication. For example, I want to highlight those indication. In 2014, they asked a question in culture, Gandhar sculpture owed as much to the Romans as to the Greeks, explain. And in 2019, they asked same topic, Gandhar art, and they said highlight the Central Asian and the Greco-Bactrian elements in the Gandhar art. So, Gandhar art is a very important pocket, right. Then you will see that Bhakti Sufi movement always important in PT and main examination. In 2014, they asked a question on Sufism, and in 2019, they asked a question on Bhakti movement. Then you will see that some questions are, the newspaper or the magazine based article. In 2015, there was an article, very good article of Subramaniam in Frontline, and they asked a question on Mesolithic rock art in India, and this question was totally based on that article. So, in culture, you can get some indication from the last year question. You will see that they are highlighting some area, right. You have to prepare those areas very properly, and then some indication you will get from the current development, and those current development will also help you in, right, in covering those areas very properly. What we have to do in art and culture? See, art and culture, there is no need to go for, you can say, a 400 page book, right. There is no need to go for it. You can read that Introduction to Indian Art, NCRT, right. This will give you a very good understanding of at least what you call visual art, and then you can right, read some, you can say, some basic, right, development of music, dance, theater from any, you can say, source. If you have any popular book, you can read that, there is no you can say there is no problem, but best preparation would be that if some aspect of music, dance, theater, cinema is in news, you must prepare that, you can say, very properly. If you have, you can say, some idea, some article in your newspaper related to some Bhakti scent or some Sufi scent, right, you must prepare those personality like Chaitanya. There is an article, then you must prepare Chaitanya. Nanak, if there is article, right, you have to prepare Nanak. Like that, you just cannot prepare a list, right, of 30 important Bhakti or Sufi scent and you can prepare. No, if they are in news, you must prepare those areas. So, art and culture would be a challenging area for us, but I said we will prepare a background of art and culture in traditional topics, and then we will keep on adding the dynamic part of art and culture, and most of the question would be from the dynamic part. Believe me, most of the question would be from the dynamic part. We can easily handle those questions, right. So, NCERT reading, Introduction to Indian Art, and then some compilation, right, a basic idea about music, dance, theatre, circus, it would be enough for art and culture. And then most, you can say, or you can say your efforts should be more on current development. Then last part, you have, right, world history. You know, world history, when they introduced, they were asking 3 to 4 questions, they were asking. Then after, you can say, sometime they start asking 2 questions, then they start asking 1 question. So, the condition in world history is different. So, 3 to 4, then 2, then 1. So, we do not know there would be a question from world history or not, and you have to prepare what? When you prepare world history, you have to prepare 18th century development of world history, American Revolution, French Revolution, Industrial Revolution, then you have to prepare 19th century development of world history, right. And then 19th century world history development was actually based on 18th century development. You know, in 2019, they asked a question, explain how the foundation of the modern world was led by the American and French Revolution. So, 18th century development created base for 19th century, and 19th century development led to the development of 20th century. So, 19th century development, particularly imperialism, led to what? World war like condition, right. So, in world history, we will try to focus, right, 18th century revolution, 19th century development, 20th century development like World War, then Cold War, right, then different authoritarian, or you can say the different totalitarian states, right, of course, communist revolution, then, right, of course, after that, right, the decolonization. So, we will try to understand this topic, but, right, in a very, right, you can say, concise manner. It is not possible to expand these areas, right, because as I indicated, they are asking less question from world history. You have some important popular book, but you should be very smart, you can say, in handling this topic. Very popular book of world history is Mastering World History by Norman Lowe, but it is very difficult. Why? You have to read this entire book, and there is no guarantee that they will ask question from world history, or they will ask only 1 or 2 questions from world history. So, the best book for you in world history would be Arjun Dev's book. You have 2-3 NCERT related to Arjun Dev. So, you can start with class 9 Arjun Dev, and then of course, you can read class 11th, right. So, Arjun Dev's world history books, right, NCERT books are of great help. They will give you very good foundation, and it will, prepare you to handle most of the question from world history, because now most of the question of world history are, you can say, they are based on application. It is not that you will prepare the causes of revolution or the impact of revolution and you will get the exact question, right. So, they sometimes ask some debatable question, that exactly, right, that who was responsible for World War I, exactly who was responsible for World War II. So, this kind of debatable question also they are asking. So, Arjun Dev will give you a very good idea about world history also, and the rest, of course, we will develop in the class, right. We will try to prepare a good base, and then with some reading, right, we would be in a position to handle most of the question of Indian history and world history, right. So, thanks a lot.